Welcome to the public meeting of the Albany City School District Board of Education. We invite those of you who like to say the Pledge of Allegiance to do that with us now. I pledge We also like to welcome you with the mission statement of the City School District of Albany, which is that we will work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. Mrs. Adams, do you have a report for us?
I do. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and to our public. Thank you for being here this evening. I am pleased to report that we have had a successful start to our 2018-2019 school year over the past week. Our administrators, teachers, and support staff across the district were prepared to welcome our students and begin the new year in a positive manner. I visited several schools on the first days of school. In each location, I observed teachers actively engaging students in their learning. We have also had a much improved start of the school day with regard to transportation. Our transportation staff has been busy scheduling newly registered students and students who require changes for their busing, as well as answering and responding in a timely manner to phone calls from families with questions and concerns. However, our staff has been able to keep up with the volume of calls over the past couple of weeks, and the volume has slowed down each day that we move forward. First Student was fully staffed and ready to serve our students and families on the first day. We commend them for their proactive efforts to address the driver shortages that I am sure we all remember, and our families most of all, from the start of the last school year in 2017. First Student Location Safety Manager, Matt Schossler, is here tonight to provide an update. We'll hear from Mr. Schossler during the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. Thank you for attending the meeting. We appreciate it. It was a pleasure to kick off the new school year with our staff members last week at Convocation on September 4th and the Employee Recognition Celebration last Friday night. I want to once again thank our partners for this event, First New York Federal Credit Union and CEFCU, as well as the Palace Theater, the Waldorf Tuxedo Company, and Albany Clothing Promotions. We are truly all in for Albany at these events. It was a great way to build a positive momentum to kick off the school year. Our schools have been helping to build positive momentum for our students by organizing clap-ins to welcome our students back to school. So many of our students have had clap-ins already and are already planning to do at some point during the first 3 weeks of school. Hackett Middle School will be clapping in the students Friday beginning at 7:40 a.m. And if anyone would like to join us, please feel free to show up. I am grateful to all of our principals, teachers, and staff members, family, and community partners for coming together to let our students know how much we appreciate and support them. Once again, to show them that we are all in for Albany. I had the pleasure of attending the Eagle Point Elementary School open house on Wednesday evening. The event was very well attended and a positive way for the school year to begin. One aspect of the open house that I found especially valuable were the hands-on writing activities for students and families. It was a great idea to get students and their parents and guardians engaged together in learning at school. Next Tuesday is the annual Dads Take Your Child to School Day across New York, and our schools will be participating once again. Last year, we had more than 1,600 fathers and father figures turn out on Dad's Day to support our students. We are looking forward to a great turnout once again this year. Check your school's calendar and events and activities and honor the men who play such a vital role in supporting our students all year round. I wanted to let everyone know about a big soccer game our Albany High boys team has coming up on Monday to help kick off Spirit Week. The Falcons are off to a 4-1 start and ranked number 18 in the state among Class AA schools. Their only loss so far was a very close game against Bethlehem, which is ranked number 2 in the state. On Monday night, The Falcons will host perennial Suburban Council Power Shenendehowa. Game time is 6:30 p.m. I want to invite everyone to flock to the nest to support our Falcons and cheer them on to another big win. Monday also is the kickoff of Spirit Week at Albany High. Students have fun activities scheduled throughout the week for students and staff leading up to homecoming on Saturday, September 22nd. The homecoming parade will begin at noon, followed by the football game against Schenectady at 1:30 p.m. and the homecoming dance at 7 p.m. I know our Falcon pride will be on full display. The 6th annual Albany Booster Club Falcon 5K Run and Walk is coming up the day after homecoming, which is Sunday, September 23rd, and the Falcon 5K will be held again in Washington Park. The Falcon 5K is a great event and the main fundraiser of the year for the Albany Booster Club, which is a great supporter of our students and our schools. I encourage everyone to participate if your schedules will allow. A reminder that all of our schools and offices will be closed next Wednesday, September 19th, in observance of Yom Kippur. My last item, there are 2 items that we have this evening. We have started a few videos, and I want to just check with Mr. Andre to make sure that we're ready for the videos, and then we'll have Ms. Brown. Okay, perfect. So I wanted to share with you 2 videos that we have produced this week that feature our students talking with their peers about 2 critical topics: attendance and the importance of positive participation in school. We want our students to be present and engaged in their learning each day. The students we have highlighted in these videos do a wonderful job emphasizing these messages. These videos are a part of a series of videos we are sharing to start the school year that highlight our district priorities and emphasize specific areas of focus for the year ahead. After the videos, Ms. Brown, the principal of Giffen Memorial Elementary School, will share some highlights about her school. So thank you.
School is important because if you're not in school, then you're not getting the perfect education that you need to pursue your career when you get older.
Every day you learn something new, and if you miss a day, you're missing a whole new thing that you could have learned. And if you miss multiple days, you miss even more things that you could have learned.
I think it's important to go to school because then you can get your education and you can go to college and finally find a job.
I enjoy going to school every day and getting there on time because the teachers are so nice and they're super fun.
Being in school on time and being here every day, it'll help you to know and understand your stuff better. If you have any questions for your teachers, you can go back and ask them.
Each day is important because each day builds on the last day, and eventually it brings us up to higher classes.
I am in the 5th grade, and having good attendance and being in school every day will help me get ready for middle school and beyond.
Positive student participation enhances the overall educational experience. Being engaged in the lessons taught, the academic conversations, clubs, and activities only serve to promote a positive school culture and climate.
So a couple of things I'm involved in is the My Brother's Keeper program and the photography program within the school. So these things sort of help build a great foundation for a career that I want to have in the future, and surrounds me around people that could help me make connections and put me in the right places and give me better ideas on what I want to do. And most of all, continue to give me motivation pushing forward to college.
We are the voices for our future. We're the ones who are going to make the change for our generation, and we should be involved in a lot of things. What I do for Best Bud is pretty much by changing how people think about other people, making a difference in our community, helping people who don't have a voice.
When I was in middle school, in the 8th grade, I'd do my homework, I'd come home, go on my phone, I'd watch TV, and through that time, I'd be very unmotivated. I wanted to find like there was a week, I think during the school year, where I just didn't show up at all because I lost motivation. Now that I am more involved and I'm a part of these clubs and I'm talking to people, I am now a lot stronger, more motivated, and I'm definitely more well-rounded at a young age too. So by the time I get to college, I'll be more prepared for that by being engaged now.
Good evening, all. That's a little hard to follow. But we'll start by first, welcome to Giffen. It's always nice to start the school year with you guys here. So we just have some information about the building and our upcoming celebrations and some progress that we've had since last year in the building, since it's only September. Before I start, behind me, if my APs would just wave, Mr. Jared Fox. And Mr. Jason Rogers. So I am blessed to have an admin team down here in the building now. So they definitely make the work a little lighter here in the building. So the first slide is our demographics. We have only been in school for a few days now. So this is kind of the makeup of the building, where we are as far as our sections go. We are a pre-K through 6 building. As of today, we were at 569. We still have just under 30 failed to enter students, so we'll continue to try to find where they are. But last year, we finished the year with just over 600 students. So we are well on our way here at Giffen. If you'll note, we do have a couple of grade levels at 4 sections this year, grade 3, grade 4, and grade 5. We are 4 deep. We kind of have a bubble that's been moving up the last couple of years. So we'll see what happens next year with grade 6. And we have an additional self-contained classroom this year. Here are our demographics. I just wanted to point out our SPED percentage is at 13%. Here at Giffen, we do have a co-teach program that goes K through 6. Here in our building, as well as those 3 self-contained rooms, and our E&L population here in the building is 14%. I've listed the 8 current languages that our students speak here at Giffen below. And on any given year, that normally ranges from about 8 to 13, 14 different languages that our students speak. Our staff demographics have not changed a ton since last year. We do have 34 classroom teachers. That includes all of our teachers. There's an addition of a health teacher this year at Giffen with the change in the health curriculum to 6th grade. So we're happy to have Ms. Barnes this year. We have 3 E&L teachers, 5 reading teachers. We have a number of teaching assistants. We have some kindergarten TAs, but many of our teaching assistants are tied to our special ed classrooms or our special ed students. Our band and orchestra music staff has pretty much stayed the same the last year or two. But we are happy to have them in the building and looking to increase the number of students that have instruments in their hands this year and beyond. Our support staff is phenomenal in this building. We could not get through the days without them. We have 5 hall monitors that work their tails off from the moment they get here until the moment they leave, as well as our office staff, our maintenance workers, and our social emotional support within the building. One point of distinction amongst our staff, one of our speech teachers, Ms. Peggy Morehouse, has worked very hard with our language intervention program with kindergarten and speech, and she will be presenting at a national conference in Boston around our LIFT results with our kindergarten students that we've seen over the last 2 years. And I'll briefly go through the SEP. I will not read through all of them. I'll let you read and just kind of talk about some of the focus points for each. Tenet 3 is around our curriculum development and support. This year, we started data teaming 2 years ago with a couple of pilot teams. Last year, all teams data teamed. And this year, our focus is really to harvest the strategies that we found that worked in data teaming last year and continue that work with the identified strategies from kind of our trial and error from last year. We will continue to push resources into our primary classrooms and then look to implement the double dosing in our intermediates with a little bit more fidelity. That was a little difficult here. We do team. As you can see, we're 4 deep, so it's difficult with scheduling to do that in the same way that it's done in the primary levels, but we've changed a couple things with scheduling and moved some reading teachers around, as well as our instructional coach. So that's a push as well this year to use that process to really modify some of the instruction that's happening in class. Tenet 4, around teacher practice and decisions, you'll see as well, mentions our student data and data teaming. That's a common theme that will go through many of our tenets. And data teaming, I already talked about the strategy implementation and really trying to make sure we're doing that with fidelity. Walkthroughs, now administrators have been doing those, but last year we started our teacher walkthroughs, which was a heavy lift in our building for teachers to be able to trust one another. But we have a lot of good things going on in classrooms here, but teachers don't always get an opportunity to see one another. So we started that process last year, and that is a highlight of our work this year, that it will not just be admin walking into classrooms and providing feedback, but teachers started that process at the end of last year, and we will continue that this year. And modifications to the coaches' schedules, again, to make sure that they are more available to do more push-in support, more so with our intermediate grades than with our primary, because they help support those grades all morning, but to get them more into our intermediate grades for that support. For our student social and emotional health, you saw we do have a cadre of support staff in the building to assist our teachers and our staff. You'll see our focus is around Tier 1 here, and that is just strengthening those management strategies within the classrooms so that students aren't being sent out of class. Last year, we did have a reduction in our level 1 and level 2 code of conduct referrals, which are normally those Tier 1 handled infractions. So that was definitely a plus. And last year, we piloted a behavior coaching model in our 3rd grade, which was identified by referrals the following year, which really consisted of our teachers working one-on-one with a behavior, almost mentor, in the building, consistent meetings, looking at student data, modifying their management strategies, and we saw a decrease in referrals in grade 3 of 22% from September through the end of the year, as well as a number of increases as far as like engagement rates. We measured it through that pilot, and the 5-to-1 ratios, teachers providing positive feedback to negative feedback. So those classrooms definitely look different, and we are looking to do that again in grade 4 this year. So we're kind of following those students. And our family and community engagement, Tenet 6. We are a community school here at Giffen. Last year when we reported out, we were in the process of hiring our coordinator. She has been hired, as you can see in the picture. She is a great addition to our building, Ms. Boyd. This year, she'll be working more closely with our partners just to make sure we're all aligned and everybody's moving to the same accord to make sure we reach our goals. We are looking to push into the community a little bit more for our PTA meetings that are not well attended. So we have a couple already scheduled on the calendar at some neighborhood places just to get the information out about the building and try to reach parents in their space as opposed to ours. And last year we implemented a chomp card, which actually is not an original idea. I know that Toast was doing something similar. And we're looking to kind of get that off the ground, where if a parent comes, it's kind of like the nail chomp card, or when you go, you're here with a teacher, or you have a meeting, you get a chomp, you get 5 chomps, you get entered into a prize or a raffle. And last year, Marcella's actually donated a TV, and a parent got a TV at the end of the year. Their card only gets entered if they've been in the building for 5 or more events or meetings. So that's another focus of Tenet 6 this year. And lastly, leadership. So this year, though I introduced my 2 APs, we are really trying to shift the mindset here where leadership is not just administration, but also the teacher leaders in the building. So trying to empower BLT, trying to empower our teachers to do that work because they have it within them. So that's a focus of Tenet 2 this year. And again, you know, the APs sometimes are swamped with discipline things, but we are trying to make sure that they really get their hands wet with instruction as we move forward this year so they can help lift in that way as well. So overall, here's kind of the focus for Giffen. It has not changed a lot. We are just trying to go a little deeper into what we've been doing. So differentiation, our data teaming, and again, strengthening Tier 1 while always being culturally responsive to the needs of our students. And here are our upcoming celebrations. We'd love to see you. Our community parade is actually tomorrow. I know someone from the communications office is normally here taking pictures. And right after, we'll do our welcome back barbecue, which will be right out by our parking lot. Hot dogs. We have a couple of community partners that are coming to sign up for after-school programs and things of that nature. And our open house is on Monday. So we would love to see you guys in the building for any of our events. So hopefully we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Brown and Mrs. Adams. We very much appreciate those reports. So now is the time in our agenda set aside for public comment. The Albany Board of Education welcomes district residents, parents, students, and other people to our meeting. We appreciate community input about the decisions we are making. In addition to accepting comments during this public comment period, we also accept comments by email, phone, or postal mail. While you are making your remarks, please keep in mind that by law, information about individual students and specific district staff cannot be shared. Every student and every staff member deserves to know that concerns about them will not be aired in public. Also, please keep in mind that public comment is really not the best place to first alert the district to a concern you have. Please share concerns first with the relevant staff, such as the teacher or principal. If you feel the concern is not addressed adequately, you may appeal that person's to that person's supervisor up the chain of command, if necessary, to the superintendent. Decisions made by the superintendent may be appealed to the board. Finally, please note that the board generally does not respond during public comment. If you need a response, please consider contacting us by email or phone or mail. And so when I recognize you, please state your name and your city of residence. Statements are restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. You will be given by the lovely Ms. Lang a 1-minute notice and a 10-second notice, and I will notify you if your time has expired. So the first name on our public comment list tonight is Matt Schlosser. Mr. Schlosser, did you wish to speak?
So my name is Matt Schlosser, as you all know now. I'm the safety manager for First Student, and I just wanted to talk to all of you a little bit about the staffing and the recruiting efforts that we've had. So going into this year, we were fully staffed on the first day. We have 94 rostered drivers right now on our 19A roster. I have 9 people in training, and we have 4 that are kind of coming back from leaves and different things. So within the next couple of weeks, we'll be at a total of 107 drivers, which puts us right at our target, one plus. So I have 64 monitors on my staff right now, with 2 coming on into training and a lot more. We have a fabulous recruiter in the building now who works tirelessly day in and day out to bring people in and keep the pipeline moving for us. We also brought on a 3rd technician in our shop to help address any breakdowns, any issues. And that 3rd technician stays on the clock till about 7:30 at night. That way most of the buses are in, and if there's any issues, we can get him out on the road. So we, you know, as I said, our goal is to just stay fully staffed, hopefully hit that 107 in the next couple weeks to where we're comfortable, and keep enough drivers to where we don't have any issues like we had in the past.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schlosser.
Good evening. Denise Town, the Transportation Supervisor. We're off to a pretty solid start this year, a definite improvement from where we were last year. Over the course of the year, we work very closely with First Student and CDTA as well. I mean, I know we talk about our yellow buses far more, but we do have a strong relationship with CDTA as well. And that building of that relationship, I think, has resulted in, you know, better driver retention and an easier startup this year. And our call volume was certainly down this year from what we had last year. And it's a much more manageable situation. It's the start of the school year, and we have a lot of children, so we're very busy, but we're having a good, solid start this year.
Thank you, Ms. Town. Jen Powell.
My bad. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Powell, and I am currently a senior at Albany High School. Tonight, I am here to speak on behalf of the Model United Nations Club. For those who don't know what MUN is, it is an extracurricular activity in which students travel to conferences, usually held by high schools or colleges, and role-play as delegates from the UN to simulate committees. To prepare for these conferences, students put much time and effort into developing their position on the topic, conducting extensive research, and strategizing to create solutions. The educational benefits of being part of this club are demonstrated throughout this process. Students become less closed-minded, are motivated to learn about current world issues, are able to gain experience in public speaking and communication, critical thinking, and working with others to achieve solutions. Over the past 2 years, our club has not been allotted money from the school district. This has greatly hindered us from performing to our full potential. Our reliance on donations and applying for scholarships has left us only to be able to attend one conference per year. Even with our limited experience, the Albany High School MUN Club has earned numerous awards, including Outstanding Delegation, Outstanding Delegate, and Honorable Mentions. These awards have demonstrated the strength of our club and the opportunity for good publicity for Albany High School. To me, Model United Nations is more than a club that I joined to look good on college applications. Being a part of Model UN has not only made me into a more confident public speaker and enhanced my education, but has allowed for me to tour college campuses and meet numerous new people. I am so thankful for my experiences with being the co-president of Model United Nations and hope that in the future we will have the resources to meet the demand of students who would like to join. Because as Superintendent Adams said in a video on Facebook, being engaged in clubs and activities only serve to promote a positive school culture and climate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Powell.
Do I turn this off? Okay.
Doesn't matter. Barack Binyamin.
Good evening. My name is Barack Binyamin, and I'm a senior at Albany High and the co-president of Model United Nations at Albany High School. I'm also here to talk about funding for Model United Nations.
Mr. Binyamin, just a little more into the mic, please.
2 years ago, a hardworking woman, teacher named Miss Evans, brought some students together and revived the club after its dissolution in 2014. Since then, we have nearly doubled our members every year and tripled the amount of freshmen involved. Model United Nations is a constant learning experience with review, practice, and we prepare in depth before going to conferences. This helps students like us pick up soft skills like research, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. In meetings and conferences, we conquer real-world issues and learn to come up with solutions that are feasible and effective. In the few conferences we have attended, we earned multiple awards for a school including outstanding delegation and honorable mention. We want to show that Albany High is exceptional, and the way to do that is getting my fellow students out there to those conferences. But in order to do that, we need funding. A one-day conference can cost $50 a student, plus initial fees and transportation costs. We have students who have shown they are willing to put in the work, as evident to our success in the conferences and mock trial. Funding will directly help students learn more about the world and gain valuable experiences. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Benyamin. Amelia Calafati.
Good evening. My name is Amelia Colafati, and I'm a junior at Albany High School, and I'm also a member of the Model UN team. I'm here to talk about another opportunity our team had last year, which was to participate in the mock trial tournament at the county courthouse downtown. This competition is a simulation of real court case where students take on the role of either a lawyer or a witness and act out a real criminal case in front of a real judge. We did exceptionally well in this competition, progressing all the way to the semifinals, where we competed against suburban and homeschooled students who, in some cases, have been competing in this tournament since its inception. During our preparation, we had the unparalleled opportunity to work with two qualified lawyers, whose insights helped us immensely. The mock trial helped me in particular to increase my confidence in public speaking, especially when I'm reading something that I have written. Although this was a great experience, and I will use the skills that I learned there in other aspects of my life, the Model UN team would love to attend more Model UN conferences in addition to mock trial, and do not want to be pigeonholed into attending conferences on the basis of funds. Although we plan on continuing with mock trial, we hope one day to be able to attend conferences akin to those attended by Model UN in the past. Attending more conferences will not only enable members to have additional academic enrichment, but will also allow them to work on skills we do not get to practice extensively in school. Thank you, and I hope the board will support our team's efforts to receive enough funds to compete in further conferences.
Thank you, Ms. Calafati. And that concludes public comment for today. So now is the time in our meeting that we come to what we call routine consent. This is the time that we approve routine matters for the district. These usually include things like contracts, field trips, hiring of personnel, and other similar matters. To ensure that we can use our meeting time more efficiently, we take these routine matters as a group with no discussion. Each board member may, if they choose, ask that we set aside a particular contract or item from routine consent to discuss it and vote on it separately. So I'm going to now entertain a motion to adopt the routine consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Ms. Wilson, do I have a second? Ms. Smith? And so normally I would say all in favor, but instead I'm going to say, are there any set-asides? Ms. Wilson?
I would like to set aside item 5.
Item 5, the Albany Police Department contract?
Correct.
Is that right? Any other set-asides? Ms. Smith?
Yes, I'd like to set aside item 8, full-out dive, as well as item 13, the MOA with Whitney Young and Edmund J. O'Neill.
Are there any other set-asides? So can I get a vote in favor of adopting the routine consent agenda less the set-asides? All in favor? That is unanimous. And so now for each set-aside, I'm going to start with, if we can do them in order, is that okay? I'm going to start with the Albany Police Department. Can I get a motion to adopt item 5, the Albany Police Department contract? Ms. Smith, seconded by Dr. Chatoor. And is there any discussion? Ms. Wilson.
In reading this, I wanted to highlight how I do acknowledge that we have a different society than when I was in high school. We, of course, had incidents such as Columbine and school shootings and things of that nature. One thing I wanted to point to is that I appreciated what our vision of an SRO in comparison to what I see going on nationally or in our state, more or less. I've seen things such as proposals for them to be armed and things of that nature, but I feel like this is more of a engagement role, and that was the more so thing I wanted to highlight as part of this.
Anyone else have anything they wanted to add? Dr. Chatoor?
I had a question regarding the grade curriculum and how it's going to be implemented. But a follow-up question to that is, I mean, is it going to be through all the 6th grades, or just the 6th grade in the middle school, or is it, is it
Ms. McKenna?
So the GREAT program stands for the Gang Resistance Education and Training Program. It's an evidence-based national and international gang and violence prevention program. The GREAT program is built around school-based law enforcement officer-instructed classroom curricula. So there is a curriculum that is attached to the GREAT program. It's intended to be an immunization against delinquency, youth violence, and gang membership for children in the years immediately before the prime ages for introduction into gangs and delinquent behavior. So to answer your question specifically about are we looking to roll this out beyond Edmond O'Neill, currently we are building the capacity of trainers and starting with the implementation at Edmond O'Neill beginning in 6th grade, and we will expand to 7th grade and push out to the other middle schools.
Thank you.
Any other discussion of this item? Ms. Lang.
How is the GREAT curriculum selected?
So the GREAT curriculum was selected through the SRO program. It's, like I said, an evidence-based national, international gang and violence prevention program. So it's a fairly well-known program that has been used through many different police departments, nationally and internationally.
Any other discussion of this item? I'm just going to add one more thing. I appreciate very much, and I encourage everyone in the public to take a look at the last 2 pages of this contract, which is a brand new memorandum of understanding between the Albany City School District and the Albany Police Department. This was a wonderful effort by our staff to memorialize our known good relationship with APD. I had the privilege of reviewing this MOU and comparing it to 2 MOUs that were provided to me by some advocates for positive SRO relationships in Denver and in Broward County. And in my comparison, I found ours to be more clear, more direct, and easier to understand for the members of the public. So excellent work on the part of staff. I very much appreciate it. And we really appreciate having such a positive relationship with APD and having it memorialized in the MOU. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's get a clap on that. And so all in favor of adopting our contract with the Albany Police Department? That is unanimous.
Can I just give a shout out to Dr. Canzoni Ball and Jack Rogan, who were instrumental in the development of this MOA along with the APD.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to item 8, the Full Out Dive Club contract. Can I get a motion to adopt item 8? Ms. Smith, seconded by Dr. Tator. Is there any discussion? Oh, Ms. Smith.
That's right. I just wanted to say this was something I was happy to see on our routine consent. My daughter was a diver. We went outside of the district to get some lessons, and I just think the benefits that were mentioned in this contract are extremely important, providing us an ability to be more competitive. Ms. Alexander Mann, your daughters also swam, and so I think that's a great thing. The other piece that I would add that I didn't see here, and it could have been that I just slipped over it, is that when it came to looking at colleges, there were many colleges that actually came to my daughter because she was a diver. Not a swimmer, but because she was a diver. And I was amazed at how many dive programs there were and how many opportunities there were for scholarships. So I just thought all the way around this was a great activity.
Any other discussion? All in favor of item 8, the Full Out Dive contract? That is unanimous. And the third set aside was number 13, the MOA between Whitney Young and the Edmond J. O'Neill Middle School of Excellence. May I have a motion to pass that? Ms. Smith, seconded by Ms. Wilson. And is there any discussion, Ms. Smith?
Again, just another comment that I wanted to make here. I'm excited to see this contract and the relationship with the Edmond J. O'Neill School in Whitney Young, and it's kind of feels like almost a legacy thing. Mr. O'Neill also, I believe, was a founder of the Whitney Young Health Center, and worked very closely with the Arbor Hill Elementary School, of which he was principal at the time. So just another kind of making that connection. And I meant to do this privately, but the last name for Mr. O'Neill is misspelled, so just wanted to make that correction. Thank you.
All in favor of adopting the contract pending its correction of the spelling of the school's name? All in favor? Ms. Mann, do you have an opinion on this? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That ends the routine consent portion of our agenda and brings us to our first major topic, which is the discussion and potential action on the reduction in options of the middle school configuration options. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, good evening again, and Madam President, members of the board. We have a presentation tonight just to kind of look at our middle school reconfiguration, a review of our options, and we're going to take just a moment to give kind of a historical perspective to put us all on the same page with where we have been and where we're going. And then we will go into what some of the options are so that you have enough information to make your decisions. The City School District of Albany provides middle school programs for students in grades 6 through 8 in 3 schools: O'Neill Middle School, Myers Middle School, and Hackett Middle School. 6th graders are also housed in 4 elementary schools: Ash, Giffen, Eagle Point, and Toast. Since May of 2015, the School District of Albany has had 2 separate groups of parents, staff, and community members called the Grade Configuration Steering Committees study a range of issues relating to the district's future elementary middle schools enrollment and facility needs. That work was done in 2 separate phases. We are now, if you were to call it phase 2A or phase 3, because several future studies or further studies were requested, and so we have done that over the past year. And so through the 17-18 school year, the board has been reviewing those recommendations, conducting community focus groups. We have other focus groups that are set to schedule in the month of October. And the board has also requested additional demographic studies as it continues to explore long-term options to serve the district's expanding student population. Now, we know that as we go through the presentation, you're going to see different numbers with regard to enrollment because it is not an exact science, but it does give us an idea as to where some of the high points and some of the low points may be as we look forward to making this decision. So I'll start back in 2015, 2016 with the very first grade configuration committee, and just looking at some of the high points with regard to what the rationale was. Academic performance of 6th graders in middle school, there was a disconnect between those in the middle school and those in the elementary school. One of the things that you'll see after this presentation will be steps that we've taken as a district to align that middle level curriculum, both with the 6th graders that are in the middle schools, but also those 6th graders that are housed in the elementary schools. We also look at how students transition. During that time, studies were done, principals were engaged in conversation. When you have a middle school that is 6th grade through 8th grade, and for 2 consecutive years, you have roughly a third of your population coming in new, it really does change the continuity of instruction, and it shifts the dynamics of your school. How can we then take that measure, if you will, which is, it is a systemic measure and make it more equitable for our students. And then, of course, looking at just 3 years of middle school consistently, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. During that time, there was the closing of a charter school, which then caused an influx of roughly 275 students that came into our system. And so we needed to make sure that we provided a continuity of instruction for those students. The program now that we have at Tony Clement is the alternative program. So we also have O'Neill that we then made into a middle school because those programs moved from one building to another. In September of 2016 and through September of 2017, we had a second grade configuration committee that met. And this second team reviewed a large number of options for a 4th middle school or a 3rd larger middle school to address the problem. On the screen, you will see reasons by which other schools were rejected based on either size, location, or cost. And then ultimately, there were recommendations made by that second committee, which brings us to almost where we are now. A couple of recommendations were brought forward. Both of those recommendations included 4 middle schools, one of 650 students, and then one of 500. However, based on community input, after those recommendations were made, the board asked for additional information with regard to a demographic study, getting more community input, and some of the decisions that were made really piggybacked on other decisions from that first, if you look as to why there was some rejection. So for example, one of the things that came about early on was the use of this school as a middle school. But in the research, what we found out was that if this school were converted to a middle school, there would be no elementary schools on the south end. So that would be a disservice to the population. When the recommendations came forward from the second committee, we were looking at the Arbor Hill area, looking at Arbor Hill maybe becoming a middle school or North Albany becoming a middle school. Where would we place our AIC programs? What would we do with O'Neill? And so all of those questions came about. So then additional information was requested. And so that information entailed bringing about another demographic study, looking at the feasibility of what different options are within our system, and the cost of which buildings would either convert or add on to or rebuild if we needed to do that. And so the board did request roughly 3 recommendations, and the wonderful folks at CS Arch helped us and looked a little more forward thinking and brought about 7 options to look at. And so for the past few months, our board has been looking through 7 options through community input. And I think I'm ready to, here we go. Through community input, it's been narrowed down to roughly 2 choices or 2 recommendations that may come forward with regard to, and I'm going to call them AD and then E+, okay? And that came about as of our last board meeting through additional conversation. And I'm going to take a little point of privilege right now and say that this process has been very thorough, and as a superintendent, it's always nice to see the level of detail that we go through in making decisions, because I think it reinforces the point that decisions are not made in a vacuum. And I think it's important for our public to understand that the input, we've heard our community, we've listened to our professionals, our demographics, our demographers. We've also listened to our architects. We've listened to the expertise in the field with regard to how it impacts instruction. We've listened to our experts business and finance with regard to how it impacts our budget and moving forward. And so I just want to extend a commendation to our board for being very thorough and thoughtful in how we are making this decision as we move forward. So the considerations that are left, I'm going to kind of jump to where we are now with the considerations that we are left with at this point. 500-seat North Albany option, which is formerly option A and D, and then a 650-seat North Albany option, formerly option E, but is now E+. And so at this juncture, I am going to turn the time over to Mr. Hogan. Is that correct? Am I good? Okay.
Yes, and I'm going to pass it on to Rich Peckham with CSRs to bring us through the rest of it. His firm, as mentioned, did the in-depth feasibility study recently.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. So the first thing to just bring everybody back to is what we're looking at relative to the enrollment projections. As been mentioned in late in 2017, early 2018, a new enrollment projection study was done, which showed lower enrollments projected than the previous enrollment projection study had included. So in our studies, we've determined that the 23-24 school year is the first school year most likely to have the fully reconfiguration middle schools in place. So at that point in time, the enrollments are projected to be 2,030 students, and over the next 5 years from there, they're projected to possibly rise to 2,144. So with that, we kind of consolidated all the summary option tables that we had shown before for all 7 options into this slide, which is 2 options, the A/D option and the E+ option. And you can see there basically the variations there. In all options, Myers and Hackett remain 650 student middle schools. In option AD, O'Neill becomes either a 500 or 350 student middle school. And in option E, it becomes either AIC, or in E+, it becomes a 500 student middle school. A keynote in the decision that the board had made was that Arbor Hill remains an elementary school in all options that are going forward. North Albany Academy becomes either a 500 student or 650 student middle school. You have approximately 100 students combined in your alternative middle school programs, either AIC or Tony Clement. And that will show you the total capacity of these options of ranging for options AD between 2,250 and 2,400, and an option E+ between 2,050 up to 2,550. And you see below that the enrollment projections for the years we are considering. 2030 to 2144 is the range of the enrollment projections that we compare that capacity to. So then we looked at what the variance is between the capacity and what the enrollment projections are. So options AD can range between a surplus of 370 seats down to a surplus of 106. And just as a side note on that, normally state ed will say if you're within 10% of your enrollment projections, that's a level that they're comfortable with, because they realize the enrollment projections are not an exact science either. So the range of capacity there, even though it's over the enrollment projections, would be within the range of what state ed would most likely consider reasonable. And then in E+, the black numbers are the ones that are the base E, which is just 650 student middle schools. The plus part of that we'll talk about in a little more detail is a future decision to open a 4th middle school, go back and open O'Neill as a middle school, and therefore have additional capacity in option E+. Construction costs between AD and E are relatively close, and then the construction costs with and without additional space at the YMCA is what you see there in the other lines. So really, what's the comparison between the two? I've kind of run through a lot of that in the previous slide. So really, your capacity for AD is 2,400 maximum, or 2,550 for the option E+. And then we looked at, because of the benefits of having 3 middle schools, we looked really at what the possibilities between these options for having 3 middle schools. So in option AD, it's very unlikely that you will have 3 middle schools because you've already made the decision to have 4 middle schools. And there probably would never be enough, if you only have 500 seats at North Albany, never enough capacity in the foreseeable future to shrink back to 3 middle schools. Whereas in option E, it's possible to have 3 middle schools, and this is where the plus part comes in. Between now and the time that you'd be moving AIC, there's enough time to reevaluate enrollment projections a couple years from now and determine whether you really need 4 middle schools or if 3 middle schools would be sufficient. So possible 4 middle school solution, yes, option AD says you definitely have 4 middle schools. Option E+ says, yes, you can have 4 middle schools if you need them, but you don't have to have 4 middle schools if you don't need them. Construction costs really are pretty close. It's about $700,000 current estimate for E+ over AD on the middle school part of the costs. Operating costs, if we've talked, $650 is really from a purely economic staffing side of things, really kind of an ideal size for a middle school. 500 student middle schools are less than ideal. Really, 350 or 650 are your more efficient staffing models because of the teaming approach in the middle schools, where you go from 1 full team to 2 full teams instead of trying to have half teams. So if you can stay with 3 middle schools, your staffing costs would be less. If you end up with 4 middle schools, the staffing costs really aren't significantly different between AD and E. And then just a few other things. The AD option, it's fixed, you've made the decision. E+ is a little more flexible. As I've talked, you'll defer that final decision on the location for the Albany International Center until a future demographics analysis a couple years from now. So there's been questions on what would Albany International Center at a Brooklyn look like, because people were having us struggling to really envision that school changing from basically a vocational school to a more traditional academic school. So this is just the plan that we've worked up that we've shown before, relocating the main office suite to the main front entrance, and really, if you want to call it, carving up some of those larger technology type spaces into regular classrooms as we go forward. And this is just a preliminary rendering of what a traditional classroom could look like in that building. There are some areas of that building that are already traditional classrooms, but the most of it is the larger shop and lab type spaces. And just an idea of what that open lobby area could be as we transition it finish-wise and lighting and everything to a traditional school. Then just to kind of summarize the schedule of what we're looking at and how the different options fall into that schedule. Option for the 500-seat school at North Albany, the option would be decided on, schedule would be set for the whole option at the beginning. Public referendum in May of 19, design and SED approval from then through December of 20, bid and awarding, get contractors on board early in 21, and then your construction would be 21 through 23 to occupy for the 23-24 school year. The 650-seat option, formerly option E, now E+, has just another line in there. The schedule is essentially the same, except for the second line in that schedule for a decision based on an updated enrollment to be done after Beds Day in October of 2020. to be able to determine whether a fourth middle school is necessary. And then the last section of the schedule is really to look at if a fourth middle school is necessary, and therefore we need to do some renovation work to accommodate AIC at a different building than O'Neill. There would have to be a referendum in May of '21. When I looked at the schedule of that and the timing of design and SED approval, once that decision is made that we need to occupy a Brooklyn or Harriet Gibbons as an Albany International Center, we would have to start the design work at that point prior to the public referendum to make sure we could hit that date of everybody being moved into the new middle school configuration for the 23-24 school year.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Is there anybody who has a question? I want to do what we did last time, which is start with sort of questions of fact and understanding rather than statements about preferences and not preferences. If it's okay, we'll start with Ms. Wilson and then Ms. Roach. Is that okay? Okay, Ms. Wilson.
Yes, a preliminary question I have about the 4-school versus 3-school is sort of just jumping out at me. In a 4-school option, i.e. M&G O'Neill and North Albany Academy, would that impact to any great degree the walk for students on that side of town?
The walking distance.
I know we discussed that in great detail at the last meeting, but I was just wanted to see comparatively if that, for example, makes the amount, like if in the 3-school option we knew how much they would be walking, but I don't know if we went to 4 in the same side of town, if that like had any.
Yeah, I think that the majority of the transportation question previously had been investigating the walking distance for the elementary school students to Arbor Hill and not so much the middle school students to North Albany. So I'm not sure we have definitive information on that. I would imagine that some of that also depends on what your feeder patterns are, because if you're not taking the neighborhood kids that we're all going to O'Neill now, still going to O'Neill based on a new feeder pattern, it might not make a difference. So I would have to say, thinking about it more, until you determine the feeder patterns, a discussion on distance of walking or transportation for middle school students is premature.
That's an excellent point, and we did go around that again. I'm glad you reminded us of that. Thank you. And I wanted to just remind everyone, because I have a hard time conceptualizing this, that tonight's decision is not which of these to choose. The decision, I know you know that, I'm just sharing this mostly for the general public. The decision tonight is, are these the choices that we would like to present to the public in the community meetings that are coming up starting October 4th? That's really the decision. So it's, do we want this or do we want to suggest some variations on this before we go out to the public? Ms. Roach.
I just wanted to clarify a possible error on this slide that says comparisons of option A/D and E+. I was interested in the slide with the operating costs implications. I wanted to confirm the operating costs for option AD. It says 2 500-seat schools would be $31 million. The cost of operating 4 500 seats are 2 500-seat schools and 2 650 schools. Sorry,
So
the slides aren't numbered.
Yeah, they are in the bottom left-hand
Oh,
corner.
they are. Okay,
They're tiny,
I'm
but
blind.
they're numbered.
11 at the, page 11, the operating costs of 500-seat North Albany. It says 2 500-seat schools would be $31 million. I want to confirm that the $31 million is the total operating costs of the 4 schools.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I think it's meant to say it includes 2 500-seat schools and the total cost. Thank you for the clarification, Ellen. Anyone else have a question for our panel here about the details of Dr. Chatur?
Just want to confirm one thing. So if you're looking at option E+, and you happen to realize that you need that 4th middle school, and so you go ahead and spend the $3.6 million for the Harriet Gibbons addition. So you need, and then you take in all the operational costs. You're looking at a difference of E+ still being $2 million cheaper than option AD, right? 57.5 versus 55.5. Right there. Actually, next one, I think. Next one. Right. So we are 26.5 plus the 31. In this case, would be 27.2 plus the 3.6 plus the 31.
Okay, what's not indicated in option AD right now is on option AD, you have the $3.6 million. So that really is an error that, I mean, the total cost implication for option AD is actually 30.1 million, because you have to spend the $3.6 million to convert either Arbor or Brooklyn or Harriet Gibbons for the Albany International Center program.
So the 26.5 is for only the work at North Albany
North
and
Albany,
Arbor Hill, but not the work. So in order for these to be apples to apples comparisons, we need to add the same 3.6.
So that said, option E plus would be $5.6 million cheaper than AD at the end of the day. Because it'll be.
I think, if my math is right, that option E plus is $700,000 more because the 3.6 goes on both sides of the scale,
Correct.
and the
Are-
26.5 and 27.2.
I don't know if you were looking at the $24.7 million number. That's the operating cost number.
Right. I'm saying if you went to option E plus, added the operating cost, added any other extra costs that are listed on that column, option E plus is still cheaper than AD. I'm just wanting to make sure the math is right in my head.
If you're taking 1 year of operating costs and adding it to
Yes,
the
yes,
capital
yes, yes.
costs, I understand now. I didn't understand, but now I do. Yes, it's cheaper. Yeah. Basically, you make back. I think what you're trying to say is you make back your $700,000 in the first year. So it's a net.
You got it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Has anybody who has not yet asked a question have a question they would like to ask? Ms. Mann, Ms. Lang, Ms. Smith, Ms. Alexander Mann.
I just have a comment that when we're presenting this to the community, when we look at the comparisons, we're automatically ruling out a possible 3 middle school solution, and by identifying that it's like very unlikely. Or am I incorrect there?
Well, that is the case if you choose the 500 seat North Albany. Yeah.
And so I just would want to be really very clear when we're presenting, and just I would anticipate some feedback or a need for clarification from the community.
Other questions? Ms. Smith, did you have a question? Or comment on what Ms. Mann said?
And I'm looking at page 10, where we are talking in both the options there, AIC/ALC. Just would like to be consistent with TCCE. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yep, that's the old name of the current Tony Clement Center for Education was the Alternative Learning Center, and that's an old acronym in there. Ms. Lang, did you have anything? I have one quick question I'll ask, and then we'll go around. Factual question. When we do the construction, all of these scenarios envision Arbor Hill as being a larger elementary school. And is that going to require us to move any functions out of Arbor Hill no matter which of these options we choose?
In either of these options, most of the ancillary functions that are at Arbor Hill, the district-wide copy center, the nursing storage, the general storage, a couple other science kit storage, which is at Arbor Hill, needs to get transferred to a different location. That would be most likely to a Brooklyn without having to do any renovation work there, given the nature of those programs.
So I think that you answered the second part of my question. I just want to verbalize it to make sure that I fully understood. When we move that stuff to a Brooklyn, I'll call it stuff, the technical term, when we move that stuff to a Brooklyn, we're not, by doing that, making the decision that Harriet Gibbons is going to be the home for the AIC, because we haven't. Do you understand my question?
No, in the plans that we worked on, even the Brooklyn plan I showed this evening, shows both functions coexisting at a Brooklyn. There's enough space there to do both the AIC program and these other district functions there from basically on different sides of that building.
So if I'm understanding this, just to verbalize it again, when we go down this road, we will be planning to move that stuff to a Brooklyn, but there's no renovation cost. We're not spending any money to renovate the space. It would just be the transportation of the stuff and the inconvenience of moving it. And then if we decided, in fact, that we want a Brooklyn to be the AIC, and we just move the stuff to Harriet Gibbons, it's just a second move. Is that right?
No, when I said that actually both things will happen, there's space at Brooklyn that will accommodate both the storage pieces and the AIC if necessary.
I see. So there's no real choice about where the storage stuff is going. The storage stuff is going to a Brooklyn no matter what. It's either whether it's going to be there with students or whether the students are going to be at Harriet Gibbons. Now I've got it?
Yes.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Anybody else have any factual questions, or really at this point I think almost any comments or anything you want to say about this? Anyone? I'll ask my other question then. Any difference in aidability on these projects that you can talk about?
There's a lot of moving parts relative to the aidability of this scenario, and we need to get comprehensive information together and submit it to state ed so that they will definitively answer. Anything we do with less than complete information will potentially be up for change in the future, so we don't want to guess at that at this point in time. But we will have that information prior to the board making a final decision targeted for November 1st of which direction you want to go.
But you don't expect to have that information in time for it to be part of our community meeting presentations starting on the 4th of October?
Probably not.
Okay. Okay, any other comments or questions? Oh, why don't you do it? You seem like you're ready, Ms. Facilities.
I knew you were going to. No, I just wanted to express thanks, maybe on behalf of the entire board, about the work that you all have done to put this presentation together. You also had a very welcoming and listening ear. The Facilities Committee also weighed in. So just wanted to thank you all very much for the time and the work that you've put into this, right on up until today, I'm sure. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to sort of preset the vote. If anybody has any significant concerns about this, I would hope that they would raise those now before I ask for a vote. Does anyone have any significant concerns they would like to raise about these? This will become the basis for the community meeting presentation. Obviously, it will undergo some further refinement to be more directed towards community rather than towards us, but ultimately this will become what happens in October. Any comment, question? Ms. Lang.
So I want to talk about transportation. If the board decided that we wanted to do a move from 0.5 to 1 or 0.5, when would those discussions and when would that have to be on a referendum?
I think that we'd want to start talking about it in the budget process in November, December, and then in January, obviously, we get the governor's state aid runs. But I think you'd want to look at that as part of the budget process as an option. If you did that, the timing's not perfect because we really probably won't hear from what the final state aid numbers are until late March, as you know. But because of the requirements on referendums, what is it, early March, 45 days prior to the vote, we'd have to have a resolution. So you'd have to have a resolution prior to knowing what state aid is. So that could be a little dicey. Almost, I don't know how you're going to, we'll have to give that some more thought, but it's pretty tricky because ideally it's really part of the budget process decision because it would be an investment. But the best time to do it would be when you had a good state aid year.
So would it be, it would seem to me we'd have to do those two things if we wanted to do them in sequence. First, we'd have to ask for the referendum that says we want to change our transportation diameter, and then we'd build it into the budget for the following year. Is that how it would be done? So if your question is what would it take for us to get it done before 23, 24, we'd have to work that backwards to see how that would work.
And then you're almost flying blind because if the public approved the change in the mileage in May, you're actually going to implement it the following cycle. but now the public said do this, and we don't even know what the financial implications are because we don't, I mean, we know how much it costs, but we don't know what our overall total state aid is, which is a direct impact on the tax levy. It'll be a little tricky. We'll have to think about it some more, I think.
Any other questions, comments? Ms. Smith?
And I really do understand the transportation questions and the interest we have here. I guess I just want us to have a bit more conversation about it. I'm not, I feel like we haven't quite gotten there. And
Absolutely.
I don't know,
I think we're at the very
obviously
beginning
needs
part of
to
that.
to start, and so I'm just
Agenda
putting it-
setting committee,
Okay,
let
thank
us
you.
set agendas. That seems like we definitely need to get more deeply into this question about transportation before we're anywhere close to deciding that we would want to even consider that. Anyone else have anything they want to say on this topic or tangential topics? Okay, I would like to entertain a motion to make the selection of options A, D, and E+, the options we will present to the community through the community meetings in October. Can I get such a motion? Ms. Smith, seconded by Ms. Alexander Mann. All in favor? That is unanimous. Can we please applaud? Thank you. Okay, that has been a long time coming, so I'm very grateful to be at this next phase in our very important conversation about how we can do the best job to educate our middle school students, which is what we're all trying to do. Which brings us actually conveniently to the next topic, which is a discussion. We are now done with the action portion of our agenda, and we are on to the discussion portion of our agenda on the middle school curriculum guide. Welcome.
Did you want me to start? Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. We are so excited to be up here tonight talking about the first edition of our curriculum, our middle school curriculum guide. But before we get started bringing you through the document, I just want to acknowledge the folks that helped guide this work. Karen Bechdahl, the secondary supervisors, the middle school principals, the directors for ENL and Refugee, Special Ed, PPS, PE, Athletics and Health, and the communications office for pulling it all together. So thank you to all involved. I know we couldn't have done this without a true collaborative approach to this work. So the real purpose of the middle school curriculum guide and alignment really began almost 3 years ago now, and we started having the conversation around what it really looks like in our 3 middle schools, the equity across the buildings. Some of our middle schools had certain programs and some middle schools didn't. So we started to really think about, one, what are the Part 100.4 regulations and of program requirements for our middle schools, and are we meeting those requirements? So that was the first question that we asked ourselves. And we also asked ourselves, do we have alignment and consistency across all 3 middle schools? And then is there equity across all 3 middle schools? And then finally we said, how are we informing our parents and our students about middle school and what it looks like as they begin in 6th grade? So when we started to really think about all of those questions and wonderings, we really said we really need to come up with one, alignment across our 3 middle schools, and then come up with a curriculum guide to inform our families and our students who are beginning middle school through 8th grade.
So the guide has a very straightforward structure. It is done by the middle schools by grade, the middle school programs, and then a description of our actual middle schools. Very easy to follow. The grade level pages are really interesting because we made a very explicit decision to have it for the core classes say students will, so that parents can have a real understanding of what students are expected to in the core classes at each and every grade level. The encore areas are a little bit more of a description of program, but the core areas, we wanted to really make sure that folks knew what kids were doing every day based on the standards.
And we also know that there's much more that goes into our middle school programs beyond the core curriculum. So we also felt that it was important for our families to have a really clear understanding around what other programs we are offering to our middle school students, including our programs for our English as a new language, our English language learner students, our honors and accelerated classes, parent universities, special education, athletics, and our student support services around social emotional well-being and developmental health. So, and of course, I think Karen mentioned the world languages as well. And AVID, I'm sorry, yes. So it really just gives a 30,000-foot overview of what parents can expect as their children move their way through middle school. And it's something that has not been done that I'm aware of, so I believe the feedback that we've been getting from our principals, from the parents who have attended the open houses or the open houses prior to school beginning has been really positive. They've liked the layout, they like how informative the document is, and they like knowing what to expect from their child in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
The next pages are a description of each of our middle schools with a beautiful picture of each of the principals so that the parents can have a sense of who is there in the building and who is leading the building, and also to give information about what school the children will attend depending upon the feeder pattern. I think next year, as we have the book come out, it can come out a little bit sooner, we can get down into the 5th grade and the 6th grades in those feeder schools and really give this to parents as they're preparing to go. And every student should get a copy of this document to take home. That was actually the plan. And then finally, there is at the end a contact sheet for all of the folks in curriculum and development. Most of the people in my many of the people in my area, as well as special ed, your physical education, health and athletics, student support services, so that parents have a quick and easy contact list to contact us.
Questions?
Excellent. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. We very much appreciate the hard work that has gone into this long effort and the beautiful book that is really the tip of the iceberg from the lot of work that went in to get to that point. So I open it to my colleagues. Questions, comments? Ms. Roach?
I just have more overall praise and applause for putting this together. I really love this book. I think you struck a really great balance between too much, when you're straddling the line between not enough information versus so much information that it's overwhelming. There's just the right amount of information, and the fact that you've got a copious amount of contact phone numbers and emails for everybody and pictures of administrators so that if I don't know, I can say, oh, that's my student's principal. I really loved the way you put that together, and I, as a parent that doesn't have a middle schooler yet, actually learned things that I didn't know from reading this. So thank you so much for putting it together. I think it will ease a lot of minds of parents and students that are navigating this transition.
Ms. Smith?
Ms. Roach, I absolutely agree with you. And I no longer have a child in the system here, but and so everything I say is from that past experience. I just wanted to ask about the honors science or whatever honors courses. Are students still sitting in like a 7th grade science class, but there is some sort of differentiation because there might be honors or not? And I that was my experience when my child was in the middle school, and I might have missed the description here of what it looks like, so pardon me if I did.
At grade 7, we do have honors. We are continuing to work on raising the rigor in those honors classes so that there is a true differentiation between those and the regular classes. But it is in existence, and it does prepare kids for algebra and their living environment. We have honors in those two areas to prepare kids for the next level. And then, of course, in English and social studies as well. And it's always a matter of, going sort of deeper and longer and more critically in those social studies and English classes. And then, as I said, in the science and the math, it's really making sure that kids are prepared for the Regents level courses they should be taking in 8th grade.
Anyone over there? Ms. Alexander?
I was at an event, and someone had a copy of this, and there were very public, very positive comments. And I really appreciate where we talked about student support. In just the way that it's written is just, I think it's very, very much welcomed. So thank you.
Dr.
I just want to say this is a great job. When my son was going to go to middle school, I wish I had this document because we had all these questions, and it's just lays everything out there for everybody. Thank you.
Ms. Lang?
So when this is going to 5th grade, and I think that's a wonderful idea. How much parent or child involvement is there with the scheduling now that parents know what the electives are? Prior, students really were just kind of put in art, put in these classes. So now that we have the information, is there more parent or student involvement with their schedule going into middle school?
I think the document will help us with that as we go into the spring of next year. The guidance counselors or representative from the middle schools do go down to their feeder programs. In addition, people like Sue Gray go down and talk about AVID. The guidance counselor goes down, they talk to the kids in the 5th or the 6th grade classes about all the opportunities that are there. I'm not certain about how much information is going back home to parents, but given what you're saying, that this guidebook will actually give us an avenue and an opportunity to open that up, because we will be able to say to the children, this goes home, talk to your parents about the curriculum for your middle school program, and open up that two-way communication with our parents about their program the following year. Much of it is prescriptive. There isn't a whole lot of choice. Choice is often dictated by, is a student taking an instrument or a music class. Beyond that, it's very much a prescribed schedule, that not taking that opens up other areas where the child might go in, but it usually is around, at 6th grade, around that enrichment period, and then around the health period that we put in. So it is pretty prescribed. It isn't like the high school, but there certainly are avenues for parents to have communication.
Ms. Wilson, did you have a question at all?
Well, I just share the sentiments of everyone with the praise, of course, for the document. And I recall when Ms. Adams was identifying, of course, that she had branding that she wanted to roll out and that she wanted it consistent. And I see that consistency at every point. So I greatly appreciate that, because I think our parents, our families, our community can appreciate at any intersection when they interact with our documents that there's that familiarity and they know what they're navigating. And I greatly appreciate that.
So I'm going to just do one quick follow-up on what Jen asked, and then I have one question of my own, which is the use of the term elective, I think, is a little bit, it leads to that question of being able to elect something. So you might think about the way that's framed if you're not really going to use it as a you can choose. Maybe we need different language as to how we describe that, unless we really are going to let people elect or choose their classes. Just that when I saw that, I thought, oh wow, people are going to get to elect to pick. So think about that. And then I wanted to as part of that, the one piece that I still get asked about even after people have seen the guide is my kid ever going to get art? right? That's the question. And I say yes, because if you look at the New York State standards, it's a da-da-da. But that's not actually in the document. The document doesn't say thou will get art at some point in your...
According to the Part 100 regulations, it's art or music. So there could be a possibility that if a child is on the music track, that they're not in an art class.
So I think that all, like, some places in the document it says required courses for such and such a year. It's a little bit vague still, I think, to parents about what you're going to get. I think that's the piece that I think is still a little bit hard to really understand how your curriculum is going to go forward.
I wonder if it would help if we had sort of maybe a typical child schedule in maybe a next edition, just so folks could see what that might look like.
Maybe think about it. And then my real question is, can you talk a little bit more about the decision to move health to 6th grade? Why that decision was made? Because it obviously has implications for the elementary schools, and I'm just curious to understand how that came about.
So let me just give you a little bit of background. So when we began this, really looking at the middle school alignment and when courses were offered in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we found that each middle school was offering, we'll use health as the example, at different points in a middle schooler's career. So in one middle school, it could have been 6th grade, in another middle school, it could have been 7th grade or 8th grade. If the schedule couldn't accommodate, sometimes the student didn't get health at all. So we had to make a decision as the middle school alignment task force to determine where health best fit in the course of middle school. And when we started to lay out the required courses and where they best fit, we found that with the foreign language requirement, for example, that and technology, et cetera, it just couldn't fit anywhere other than in 6th grade. So we have our health teachers pushing into the 4 elementary schools who still have 6th grade and providing that same semester-long health course. So they still are 6th graders at the elementary level are still getting it. Did that answer your question?
It did, and then I'm going to ask my follow-up, and then Jen has a follow-up also. So 2 questions about that I would like you to speak more about. One is, I've been asked several times about Planned Parenthood and their middle school program, and I believe I understand, but I'd like to hear you describe how that's going to fit in. And then secondly, what about our current 7th grade cohort, which, several of us happen to have 7th graders, so we're duly aware that our kids didn't have health last year, and now have missed their 6th grade health. So what's going to happen to those kids? Or are they just not going to get health?
So we're currently working with our middle school principals to circulate the students through health who did not get it in 6th grade. And we're really talking about Myers and Hackett Middle School. O'Neill students in 6th grade did get health last year, so we have a gap year for them. So every student will have the health curriculum before leaving middle school. As far as the Planned Parenthood component, we are embedding the Planned Parenthood component that was typically included in the health curriculum in 8th grade into the Family and Consumer Sciences course in 8th grade. We just didn't feel it was appropriate to include that component of the health curriculum in 6th grade.
So it's the same curriculum, it's just taught as part of FACS instead of as startup health. Okay, Ms. Lang, did that answer your question?
So you said would the 7th grade cohort be with its own 7th grade cohort where they're trying to fit it, or would they be with 6th graders where their schedule permitted?
They'll be with their own cohort.
Anyone else have any secondary questions on the middle school curriculum? Terrific. Thank you very, very much. Mrs. Adams, did you want to say something?
Yes, just in closing, I want to just again say thank you to Ms. McKenna and to Ms. Bechtel for leading this charge and all the hard work that's gone into it from the whole team. And we absolutely appreciate that work. So thank you very much.
That brings us next to the district safety plan.
So while they're getting set up, we have Lori McKenna again as the Assistant Superintendent of the Secondary Education Division, and we have Dr. Carrie Canzoni Ball and Jack Grogan, Mr. Jack Grogan, who is our Security Director. So they will share with us our safety and security update.
Good evening.
Hello? Okay. Tonight we'll be presenting the Safety and Security Update, which really captures the work of an interdisciplinary group of stakeholders that began in the fall of last year. Whoops. Here's just an overview of everything we'll speak to this evening. We'll go into a little bit more detail. Closer, okay, thank you. So it might be helpful to begin with a little bit of a background about a systems review that kind of took place in real time. Unfortunately, the 17-18 school year started off rather quickly with some situations, a variety of situations that required a coordinated response for students, staff, administrators, families, and even some community members. There were some complex situations and even traumatic incidents that occurred throughout the district in different buildings, which involved, again, a variety of scenarios, whether it was the unfortunate and sudden and tragic loss of students unexpectedly, or a serious medical event that occurred on school grounds that was witnessed by many, a significant security threat, a large-scale event involving literally hundreds of students and staff members, and the list can go on. What we quickly realized that although Jack Grogan and Mike Wager and the safety and security monitors did a tremendous job responding immediately to crises directly following the crisis in the buildings, it became apparent that a formal team structure needed to be put in place. We realized that a coordinated district-wide emergency plan did not exist in a detailed way that was easily accessible to all. And efforts at post-crisis intervention strategies were not uniformly coordinated. So additionally, the quality of building emergency response plans varied throughout the district. So PPS, Pupil Personnel Services, teamed up with Jack and members of the Albany Police Department, some of which who are here this evening. So just shout out to Lieutenant Gerasi, and school resource officers English, Timmons, and Reddix are here with us tonight. So we thank them for their collaboration and work and coming out this evening. So we engaged with the Albany Police Department to seek professional development that would aid us in the creation of a district-wide emergency plan, number one, and also a process that would provide us technical assistance for what we're certainly not expert in. Obviously, Jack brings a wealth of knowledge and history and expertise in that area, but we also needed some outside agencies to help us with a variety of crisis planning items. A critical member also of this newly formed and quickly formed think tank was Janice Severson. Janice is the director, or project coordinator, for Safe Schools of New York State Police. She is the liaison to the governor's office for school safety issues. So she signed on and said, Albany, you need help, we're there. She had a close working relationship with Lieutenant Gerasi and APD, so she has been working very closely with us. She was unable to make it here this evening, but sends her regards. Here you'll find a history of some of the professional development coursework and activities related to crisis response planning that we engaged in. To kick off the work, several school staff, including members of cabinet, members of district administration, several bargaining units, and APD officers attended a 3-day institute sponsored by the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA, where we learned a multitude of things, including how to develop develop and refine school safety planning skills. We learned about best practice, and techniques on how to improve existing plans, how to stay current in a system that, quite frankly, constantly changes in its guidance. We learned how to differentiate between building plan responsibilities and district plan responsibilities, how to train and exercise, how to identify appropriate staff. So this was extremely valuable, and it really began the planning cycle where we mapped out short-term goals and long-term goals as a committee. Secondly, we attended the standard, We attended the standard response protocol training through iloveyoguys.org. This foundation was created by John Michael Keyes and his family after they lost their daughter tragically in a hostage active shooter situation in Colorado. So they developed standard response protocol in incident command systems and reunification methods, of which 12 of us throughout the school district and APD were trained as turnkey trainers. We've begun training that to administrators and are now offering the training to all of the buildings throughout the district. We were also invited to attend a focus group put on by Homeland Security and New York State troopers, where we got to see a piloted curriculum and give feedback, which was very helpful to us and really confirmed that the active shooter training that we're engaged in with APD that they offer continually to community members and school staff is right on and right aligned with best practice that's out there. Finally, we attended several panel discussions hosted by legislators. Ms. Adams was one of the panel presenters, which was also an affirmation of the work that we were engaged in was the right work, because we got to meet with different school colleagues and university level people and law enforcement officials that were all part of these discussions. So the experiences I just outlined, again, helped us formulate our plan, and then we've begun to put it into action, which is where I'll turn it over to Jack.
Thank you, Carrie. First, I want to thank Board of Education for allowing us to speak tonight on the things that we've been doing. Through the years, we've all talked about being on the same page. I think this is a start of being on the same page for us. We started this last year. The discussion we had at this time last year was everybody being on the same page, same protocol. So the things that we've been doing over the summer are putting us on that same page. We've started faculty meetings this morning in regards to going through the protocols that we're using, the safety team development and the teams that we have now. You know, that we're all required to have a district-wide safety plan and building level emergency response plans. These plans are designed to prevent or minimize the effects of violent incidents and emergencies and to facilitate the coordination of schools and school districts with local, county, and state resources in the event of such incidents or emergencies. The teams that are listed here are the teams that we have developed. We haven't developed it with the state requirements that we do this, but we went through the district part, the district-wide school safety team, the district-wide emergency response team, and the district-wide post-incident response team. These are things that when you read through them, extremely important district-wide, but each building also has to have their building-level emergency planning team, the emergency response team, the building-level behavioral threat assessment crisis team, and the post-incident response team. A lot of talk in our meetings were the things that we were lacking. You know, we had a plan in place when I started 9 years ago, but we've enhanced it to the point now where we're including people like the Albany Police Department, like the New York State Police, county agencies. We've all come together to actually, if we were to have some type of incident, that we have checked all the boxes to make sure that, you know, we're going to be ready. From the top to the bottom. It's been a huge take on for people that are on these teams. And some of the areas of focus that we're looking at is, like I said, the district-wide school safety team has met to determine these areas of focus. We have a core team to review all building emergency plans. The team consists of the director and the assistant director of Safe Schools and Violence Prevention, PPS administrator, the district health coordinator and the Albany Police Department critical assessment team was involved in a lot of this planning. A lot of great discussion during these. There was differences of opinions, and we all, sat through the August months to come up with the best plan that works for us, so our kids are safe. Some of the things that we looked at, as you can see, the emergency response placard that is going to be in each classroom, and the students and staff can read it in and out of the classroom if they want. I had a meeting today at the Boys and Girls Club to go over the same stuff, so they're on the same page as us for our after-school programs. One of the things that never hit me, but it was brought up last year by a board member, and I apologize, I don't remember. The addresses on the top weren't there. So we discussed that, because if someone calls 911, and I'm guilty of this, I've been in a building, and if I'm calling, sometimes I don't know the address of that school. And I had to go through myself to really remember each and every one of those addresses. I mean, I know where it is, I know how to get there, but in the 911 system, they need an address. And I'm not sure who it was, but I thank you for that, because that kind of really sprang out to us that it wasn't on there. And when we're doing our faculty meetings, I asked some of the faculty members, I go, do you know the address of your school? And they all kind of look at me, and I'm like, that's why we do that, little things. All things are color coded, are color symbols. We're trying to make it easier for staff to, if there is an emergency, that it's just second nature, that they just look at this and they go, okay, now I know what to do. We're trying to have, a goal that we have is to have a smaller version of this that we can place inside their, with their ID. So if they can just look at it real quickly to see what they're supposed to do. We try to train Anthony Gerasi from the police department. We're training about muscle memory, about doing the same things over and over again. And it seems to be working. There's been some changes in the last few years that really has helped us out in a couple of the big situations that we've had this year. We're researching the funding for grab-and-go bags. Some schools are using grab-and-go bags. What we would like to see, every school have the grab-and-go bag. Whether it's, a small bag or something that's big that each teacher, has, that they can go and make sure that whatever they need in that bag is there. With Kent Baker, we've been researching entry protocol, whether it's the Raptor system, and that's Carrie's favorite word, is the Raptor system. And I was kidding Kent about that today, but there are many systems out there. Whatever one's going to fit for us. We've been in constant communications with vendors and things like that to see which one fits, for the new Albany High School that's going to fit. We're upgrading camera systems, because this system's old, as I've said, for the 9 years, and we're in that process now. So there are a lot of good things that are coming out. And like Carrie said, there's 12 city school district and AP staff that are turnkey trainers that we're going to different schools, and going over all these things just so we're all on the same page. Another thing we're looking at is administrators' emergency call buttons. Some of the administrators have call buttons on their desk. If there's an emergency in the front, they can hit that button. It goes right to the Albany Police Department. Carrie was talking about Boston Spa had, like you see at Stewart's, a panic button for administrators or certain staff members. Those are the things that we're looking at. In the last few years, we've had some eye-opening incidents that we need to make sure that we're all set and ready to go. The budget implications are, the grab-and-go bags, the cost of the emergency cards, printing them up. To me, that's minimal, to be honest with you, for the safety and making sure we're all on the same page. We're in a good place with our partners throughout the city and the county of Albany, and we just really need to build on that and just make sure that our kids know that they can come to school, learn, and they don't have to worry about what's going on in the country. And that's really it. If there's any questions that we can answer.
Thank you very much for the excellent presentation and all the hard work that goes on before the presentation. The presentation is just the end. Thank you very, very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Ms. Smith?
First, thank you very much. Love this. I did not quite sure how to ask this, but I wanted to just see how the connections were being made to, say, to trauma-informed care and also to culturally responsive involvement, how those things impact our emergency response plans.
That's a really great question, and that's why we think it's so important for this partnership, and we thank Lori McKenna and Superintendent Adams for their leadership in kind of melding the two departments, safety and security, with pupil personnel services, because everything we do is related to the social, emotional, developmental health of our students, and building relationships with our families, and that's everything. That's the only thing that trauma-informed care is about, is the importance of relationships, because that's the only factor proven to show how kids can be resilient and how people can be successful, is that someone cared about them so deeply that they were able to persevere past and through trauma. So everything is connected. We have a police agency that is also a trauma-informed agency. We continue to build on that work here. We have started this past June, we trained half of our monitors in therapeutic crisis intervention, which is very closely aligned with all of the trauma work we're doing. The trauma work weaves through the culturally responsive education. There's a racial healing component, which we're actually rolling out to several more schools this year. We've trained 100 staff members, all of our counselors and social workers, psychs, behavior specialists, administrators now are added to that group. So we've trained hundreds of people in a trauma-informed approach. So that holds through with the monitors. We're including them in building-wide trainings as well.
Ms. Wilson.
Thank you also for your presentation. Something that are two words that say a lot in this presentation to me are district-wide. I think it's important when you're talking about safety and security. To me, that's more so talking about communication, really. And I think our families can appreciate that at any point, again, at any intersection, that consistency and cohesiveness in the plan. And so I want to, more so commend you all on that. But I had a question about the push button for administrators, or I guess the term was panic button. So the anticipated response would be like, you push this button if, and then XYZ happens.
Correct. Some of our buildings have had those for a while. And the Albany Police can attest to the fact that sometimes they get hit with a knee, and so the police respond. We're trying to, when you get to that point in time where we're going to implement and hopefully put those in or whatever, if we have the panic button, there has to be some type of protocol of when that occurs. It can't be because you think that a parent's yelling at you or something like that. There's got to be certain criterias, and I'm sure that with Kent and Carrie and everybody, those will be developed. The teacher or the administrators that have them now, we've already had that discussion in regards to these are certain things that you need to, handle as an administrator, and these are the other things that you're probably going to need some assistance with.
Dr. Chatur.
When I first saw the presentation, I wasn't sure that iloveyourguys.org was actually real. So I happened to go onto that site. It's a pretty fascinating site. And in this day and age, I think I would recommend people just, go there, read about the things that, it's very informative. One thing though, I didn't have enough time to actually go detail on it. I noticed that they had PDFs of the emergency response, those placards. Are those things that the teacher would post in the classroom, or how does that work?
Well, the placards are for if we were to go into any type of lockdown, lockout. In a lockdown situation, if it was an actual situation, you probably wouldn't have time to post that. But if we do a drill, it's for the parents or anybody that shows up, because parents are wondering why, I can't get in the building to see my student. So it just says that we are in lockout. Lockouts are different if there's an incident in the community where we need to make sure that all our doors are secure. Business as usual, but we're not going to let anybody in or out of the building until we get the all clear from the Albany Police Department. So those placards would probably basically be in the front office, placed on all the doors that have, that people from the public will come into.
I think that could also be a good topic for Parent University.
Yeah, so basically I just wanted to point out, and just to be clear, that the one that was up there earlier, that will be placed on the classroom wall in every, actually every office, every room throughout the district. But it's just one facet of an entire program that's rolled out that you saw, which includes, so you'll see those colored symbols, the signage. There's actual mini lessons to teach young children about safety and what to do if you hear those words, lockdown, 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 come across. So that, obviously we've bitten off a lot here, so that's why we have short-term goals and long-term goals. So yes, down the road, we're hoping to roll out more parts of that program. It was extremely powerful to have John Michael Keyes come here.
Other comments or questions? Ms. Alexander-Mann.
It's a great presentation, and what I'm wondering is, at what point would the parents be, at what point would this be shared with parents? I would assume, like, before we share it with elementary kids, what a lockdown's all about, we share it with parents, but have you thought that, has it gone that far ahead?
Speak to the community forum that we had
Last year, we did have a community forum in regards to a lot of the things that a lot of districts are doing. They're putting it out there in regards to safety and security, what to do in certain incidents. A lot of feedback was that, are we traumatizing young students? And that's why we're really looking at this. And we did a lot of research and what would the best way to roll this out to our students, to our parents, just to make sure that, again, we're all on the same page. Because, like I said before, when I started years ago, every building seemed to have something different. And the board heard me for a lot of years say that we all need to be on the same page because we have traveling teachers. We have, kids that go building to building or whatever it may be. We want everybody to make sure that they do the same thing. So the part to bring it to the parents, I think we're still in that developmental stage of how the best to do this. And I think it's something that we need to take our time to do that. So hopefully sooner than later, we'll be ready to go for that.
Okay, because we've already gotten input from the community, and they're going to be rolled out and posted. So
I'm thinking that definitely a parent university type forum would be the way to go. Kind of like we advertised last year. It wasn't that well attended, but I think if we, start early and advertise it regarding crisis response, or, I'm sure Ron can help us package that. It's a great idea.
Okay, we are about out of time for this topic unless anybody has something pressing. All right, thank you very, very much. We appreciate all your hard work in keeping our children safe. That brings us to a discussion and update on our Community Schools Initiative.
So I welcome to the microphone Ms. Michelle Bridgewater. She will share with us about the community schools and give us an update. Thank you so very much for being with us this evening. And hi to everyone in the back.
Good evening, everyone. I'll move quickly because it's late and I'm tired. But I just wanted to do a quick update about where we are with the community schools. You'll see on my agenda the components that I'll talk about quickly and leave some opportunity for you to have questions. I just want to remind the board that the essence of the community schools strategy is to create schools that serve as a hub of support services, not just for kids, but for families also. Ideally to provide services that enable families to increase their economic stability, offering opportunities for them to engage with legal services, and other services that they typically run around the city to access. Ideally, we can provide those services here in our schools to make it more convenient for families as they seek to support schools and the academic success of their kids. There are a number of frameworks for the community schools model, but one of the reasons that we have community schools currently in our district is that we had 5 priority schools at the elementary level who chose the community schools model as their transformation model. And so we spent time for the last year and a half working with the National Center for Community Schools, the Children's Aid Society, and one of their models this is their framework for community schools. There are some models that have 6 domains. There are other models that have 3 domains, 4 domains. But because we were looking to do the entire school transformation, one of the pieces that stood out for me was the piece that focused on the entire school and the curriculum and instruction component and developing the capacity to ensure that students were more academically successful as well. Most models will focus on the support services for families, mental health, dental, physical health, and also extended learning opportunities. But I thought the curriculum and instruction component was critical to what we were trying to do with our priority schools, and so this framework is what we've been using to date. The other thing I like about this model is it's a developmental model in that what you'll see when you see some of the things that the schools are already doing, it starts with focusing on supporting the child first. And as we grow over time, there are more services for families. And as we continue to grow, there are more opportunities for the entire community to use the school and access the school services as a central hub for the community. But when you look at, and we'll see some of the schools, their plans for this current year, they really focus on supports for kids right now. These are the current schools who are community schools at this point in time. Something to remember is we have some schools where we've had some transition in terms of the community school site coordinator. So we've had community school site coordinators, which is a requirement of the strategy, come in at different points throughout the last year and a half. And in 2 buildings, we've had some transition. And 1 building currently doesn't have a coordinator. We're looking to hire a new one. And that coordinator is so critical to the work and supporting the leadership team at the building level and helping to support the community schools advisory team, which all of the schools have. They have community partners. They all, except for 1, have parents involved. The 1 school that doesn't have a parent at this point, the student is no longer at the school, and so they're seeking some additional parental support. The community schools, all because of the community schools aid, and we'll talk about some of that funding sources, this is the structure that we've been able to put in place in all of the buildings as a result of that, of those resources. And again, to support the comprehensive work around our kids first, and ideally over time to develop the supports for families as well. The schools are funded. The foundation aid, there was a set aside for community schools. And so that's the primary source of funding for our 4 of our elementary schools, and then TCCE. Schuyler was a receivership school, and so last year the state put out a community schools grant for receivership schools. And so currently Schuyler is operating under the community schools grant. It's an annual grant. We don't know if it'll be reissued, and actually Schuyler's no longer a receivership school. However, what would happen for next year is that we would look at the aid to support that building along with the other 5 buildings. And then I just put together some ideas around some of the priorities for each of the buildings, some of the partnerships that they've developed, and what their ultimate goals are in terms of trying to improve outcomes for kids. We have some really, for the community school site coordinators who are here, they are really dynamic individuals. They are of the community, from the community, all about the community. And they've done an amazing job at building. It was easier for them to establish relationships with families. And I think that is part of the work that all of our schools have prioritized, not only just to provide supports to kids, but to really get families to feel more comfortable about entering the building and walking away understanding what it is that we're trying to do for their students, and really what are the possibilities we could do for their entire family. And so I'm just kind of going to breeze through some of this. And I'm not going to talk about it. No, but I think you'll see some commonalities too. You know, we're all about academics. Most of the schools are looking at chronic absenteeism and really using the after-school model. All of the schools have used much of their funds to expand the enrichment after-school opportunities for kids, not just in terms of increasing the number of kids who access the services, but really changing the types of services that enrichment opportunities that kids have. So we're looking at photography, we're looking at STEM in schools that have never had those opportunities before. We're looking at music opportunities. There are dance opportunities, art opportunities, partnerships with the police department, with probation around youth development, all of which came out of each school had to conduct a needs assessment, which included a review of all the data with their advisory teams. It included focus groups with parents, teachers, and students. And in all the buildings, the students are asking for more enrichment sorts of activities. You know, there's one school that wants karate, there's Toast wants Chinese. But the kids are driving some of the things that we're starting to see in terms of the enrichment opportunities that are available at these particular buildings. And then I think this is the most important part in terms of what needs to happen for the future. I think if the district is committed to ensuring that our schools remain community schools, I think we have some work to do in terms of ensuring that, one, and we've had these conversations at the school level, looking at partnerships that are able to be sustained. And really, you know, one of my thoughts and thinking about this presentation tonight was thinking about how we define partnerships and providers of services, and looking at partners who bring something to the table so that we don't always have to pay for it. Their service we just offer here as a convenience to families, and that will support some of the sustainability. And you know, as long as we have resources, we can provide some other opportunities for kids and families. But just thinking about how we need to be more strategic and develop a strategic plan around this community schools model to ensure that we have some criteria for how we select partners. We have some criteria around expectations for partners and how we hold partners accountable. We have some buildings, all of our buildings have had partnerships prior to community schools. And one of the things we're learning is that sometimes we have multiple partners trying to do the same thing, but not necessarily doing the same thing. And so just being more strategic around that work at the building level, but also if we're going to continue to expand this model, we're going to have to do some work at the district level. And that being said, we'll need additional support. We do have a grant through the United Federation of Teachers to increase or provide an opportunity for North Albany, O'Neill, and AIC that we're waiting to see if we have received. So ideally, we may have 3 more community schools coming on board. And then my other critical piece is just that we just need to continue to support our schools in the professional development to develop a strong understanding of what it really means to be an effective community school and really create community schools that produce enhanced outcomes for kids in ways that we haven't thought about. And I think the enrichment piece and exposing students to opportunities that they would never have had is something that is critical to our communities and that our kids are asking for. And I think this opportunity provides that for them in ways that we haven't imagined. And I can't wait to see the videos that result from our kids speaking to what these new experiences offer them, and more importantly, our families speaking to what these new experiences mean to how their kids feel about schools.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bridgewater. I always love it when you present because your enthusiasm is absolutely palpable all the time, and it helps us feel one with the work that's done when we get to feel your enthusiasm. Board colleagues, any comments or questions? I do remind you that we are on schedule right now, but we are not ahead of schedule. I like it at this moment in the agenda to be well ahead of schedule, and we are not ahead of schedule, which means we are looking at after 10 o'clock because we have 2 more things to talk about after Ms. Bridgewater. So I encourage you to be very thoughtful about your comments. Ms. Alexander Mann.
I'll be brief. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
And
thank you. Thank you.
you know, and yeah, that's my comment.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander Mann. Ms. Lang.
So I want to say that I that we have a better understanding of what community schools are and what this was first implemented to us with money and curriculum, or not curriculum, but criteria, and could it be used for staff, could it use behavior? And this is still one of the things I think that we will prioritize when we go to the governor, which we start setting those meetings up in October. This will be the third year, I believe, that we're going with our materials. And I guess my question for you is, what are some of the things that you would like us to, as a government committee, to kind of take back with what is working or what's not working? I know that a lot of schools and districts are skeptical about spending the money if it's not going to continue. We know that that is obviously a focus that we do, but what do you think really will resonate with the governor's office, who the governor really was instrumental in these monies?
I think that we have to find ways to have them recognize that there is some opportunity for cost savings, not just in education, but in social services and transportation, by creating these hubs of services for families who utilize services all the time. We've got families waiting in line over on Washington Avenue for social services when they live around the corner, you know, and just thinking about the overall savings and opportunities for families to, one, be in the building. We're always looking for our parents to come in and have an opportunity to talk with teachers or to be volunteers. And the more they're here because they're taking care of other business, the more opportunity it lends for our teachers and staff to build relationships with them, and also to allow them to engage with their kids in really more realistic ways in terms of their academic programming.
Ms. Wilson and then Ms. Smith.
And it's not so much a question as a statement that I appreciate your point you made about identifying, attracting, and retaining partners, and more so partners with shared goals rather than competing goals and things of that nature. Shared goals to the district, shared in terms of demographic and the services or the aims that we may have, and thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. This is great. Having been involved with a number of CBOs, I definitely hear what you're saying about, you know, sustainability. I also know those organizations are struggling like crazy. But my question really is, and we don't have to go into it now, but I was thinking about what kinds of conversations are had, like how often do the partners get together, and do the discussions go out to, hey, maybe we need to have a conversation with the local Department of Social Services about a satellite here or there? Again, you don't have to go through this now. I'm just trying to figure out how it all works so that we can get those services into place.
And I could say, you know, just briefly that each of the sites has a community school advisory board that they meet with monthly, you know, and right now, because everyone except for Sheridan, because of their turnover, has completed all components of the needs assessment. So the advisory board has already set priorities and looked at those partners who could help them support those priorities. But that's an ongoing sort of conversation. I think this is really the first year where we'll be implementing a lot of new programs in our buildings and being able to look at the data to see what the impact may or may not be and rethink some of that work with their advisory teams. But that's ongoing work at the building level.
Anyone else have something that they would like to share? All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Bridgewater. We very, very much appreciate all your hard work.
Have a good night.
Good night. So I would like to make a motion that we amend the agenda slightly. For those of you who are looking ahead on the agenda, we have 2 items remaining. We have Ms. Adams is going to present on the leadership and resource roles and responsibilities guide that she's working on, and then we have an Albany High School update. Now, the gentlemen who are here and ladies who are here to do a high school update can leave when they're done. So I would like to move that we switch those 2 items on the agenda so that those folks can go home. I'm going to make that motion. Tabitha Wilson is seconding. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Gentlemen of Albany High and Ms. Tina Mercedes, we appreciate your being here. Thank you.
Okay, hello. Okay. We're going to provide you with an update of the current Albany construction project. With me is Scott DePhillips of Turner Construction and Rich Peckham, the architect for CS Arch. And Tina's here from CS Arch as well. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for allowing us to speak with you tonight, especially a little bit early. I promise to keep it brief. Talking about the construction status update at Albany High, we were excited to get underway in the spring. We had our challenges throughout the summer for sure. We're pleased at this point to report that the temporary power relocation was completed on schedule so that we're able to put power back on in the building, which is good to help students learn. Furthermore, we're able to give them toilets and sinks, so water came back on late in the summer. And I want to mention your facilities folks did an unbelievable job. What they have to clean with no power and no water. We basically gave them buckets and flashlights, and if any of you saw that building on opening day, it looked as good as every other building in the district. So the team at Albany High, plus Brian Dangler and his group, really went above and beyond. They really, the work that they had to accomplish and the time that they had to accomplish it with the utilities that I gave them were absolutely instrumental in getting your students back in classes. The temporary athletic locker room trailers were delivered late August. They are currently online. It says there that they would have occupancy the week of 9/10. They are, and your student athletes are using those as staging and changing areas for your after-school athletics. The athletic building, most of you know, is, while during demolition of the exterior facade of that building, we found quite a bit of deteriorated steel. So we had to engage the engineer, the architects, and everyone to come up with a plan to resecure that building. So currently, the rubber gym is offline, and in that slide it says we anticipate completion of the shoring on 9/16. We're happy to report that we're ahead of schedule with that, and that your students are currently, as of yesterday, re-engaged in athletics in the main gym. So the main gym, the boys' locker room, the boys' changing areas are back online. The north side of that corridor, for those of you familiar with the building, is off limits to students and staff. As we continue to make those repairs, which will probably take us through to late November, early December, to effect all the repairs needed on the rubber gym. Some of the other milestones that we're tracking is getting the stairs and the temporary stairs on the outside of the gym so that we can increase your occupancy there. Our hope is to have that installed prior to basketball season so that, again, we can update the occupancy of the main gym. Bleachers are set to arrive in the next few weeks. Steel erection, on this slide it says tentatively end of the month, but you'll see a little bit further on we're talking about ways of accelerating that schedule. We've got a commitment out of our steel guy to start sending that steel early. So I kind of jumped forward to jump backwards. On the tower, crane will be erected. Some of the parts and pieces will start next week. We'll erect that. It'll be completed the week of the 24th. I mention that tower crane specifically because it's a large piece of equipment. It tends to draw a lot of attention to the district. All good stuff. You will probably get phone calls. I usually get them the first few weeks that those things are up. They do spin by themselves when nobody's in them. That is by design. I promise you it's not coming down. A lot of precautions have been taken to make sure that it's safe. But it is 140 feet in the air, 275 feet long, so it'll tower over your building by a few stories. So people are going to question, what is that, what's it doing, and why is it spinning all by itself? I assure you that's normal. So some of the concerns that we have currently is the potential for additional deteriorated steel. We think we're well past that now. We've uncovered most of the phase 1 building steel. We may have a similar condition when we get into phase 3 up against the ramp where it comes into the main office space. Some of the schedule delays, we are 3 months behind schedule. We know we talked a few months ago. I've been talking regularly with facilities, and Bill and Rich and I meet regularly to talk about those delays, and we're looking for opportunities to accelerate that schedule. That tower crane was one of those things that we hope once we actually start swinging steel that crane will speed that process up. Instead of having 4 or 5 little cranes, we have one big one that can reach everywhere. And then lastly, probably most importantly, is the money. We're about 50% through our contingency budget for phase 1. The overall project health is good. If you remember, I was pleased to report back in the spring that we were under budget for phase 1, and we took all of that contingency and put it in the overall project. So this is just the money that we earmarked for phase 1, and we're about 50% through that contingency pot with all of our challenges. with about 20% of the work complete. So we like to be, by the time we're swinging steel, about 35% is not uncommon for us to have burned through at this stage. So we're a little ahead of that curve. Rich and I are working closely at contingency studies. There may be some opportunities where we're completing phase 2 work, so some of that contingency money will shift back. But from an overall budget perspective, we're not unhappy with the current changes that we're receiving. They're apropos of what we're finding in the ground, things like transite piping and contaminated soils and those types of things that we've had to deal with, and we feel that we're fairly well past those items. So with $1 million+ left of contingency, if we can stop finding nonsense, we will be in good shape. So that pretty much does my little piece. So hopefully I was slightly ahead that I can turn it over to the architects to tell you all about the cool stuff coming up.
Scott just skipped over these few pictures that was in his presentation, just so you can see that work is still progressing out there, even though with our challenges of underground work, a lot of the foundations are in place. The new parking lot from Washington Avenue is in place and being used. And you can see the base of the tower crane is there, but they have to bring a crane in to set the crane, so that's the next step for that. So I'm just going to be the thorn between two roses here tonight, and I'm going to pass it over after I go quickly through the schedule for Tina to kind of walk through where we're at with the design. But the overall schedule, we're talking about occupancy of the classroom addition in fall of 2019. As Scott reported, we're behind what we were hoping to be, but are still going to be able to complete that based on current situations in fall of 19. It'll just be later in the fall. Phase 2 is really designed for occupancy a year later. We're going to have overlapping phases under construction for phases 1 and 2. Phase 3 and 4 are much longer phases. Each one of those will be over 2 years of construction, so there'll be sub-phases within those phases, but phase 3's really the rest of everything along Washington Avenue and the gymnasium renovations, and then phase 4 is the rest of the classroom building renovations. Just as a point of orientation, I think we've shown this slide enough that really the existing building is 3 separate buildings of the academic loft building, the gymnasium building, and the auditorium building. And this part here is just showing the 3-story classroom addition, which is under construction, which is phase 1, plus the mechanical room and the shell on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the area between the auditorium building and the gym building currently. I'm going to turn it back over to Tina now, and we'll talk about adjustments we're making in phase 1 and a couple things that have been raised by both the board and the administration.
So as we are under construction, we're also making some modifications that have come up, and one is the introduction of a gender-neutral toilet on all floors of the academy building. So 3 floors. It replaced a classroom. It replaced a staff bathroom, and will be stacked along the 3 floors.
And just, I'll point out one of the points I made to the facilities committee the other night. One of the initial thought was that we would just take one of the staff toilet rooms and sign it as a gender-neutral toilet room. In talking with the principal and the staff, they don't like to have toilet rooms where a student can lock themselves in. If you only have a single person toilet room, that's the only opportunity you have. So we made some modifications to enlarge that room, so there's actually a toilet stall within that room separate from the room and the sink, so that students can still go in there, have the privacy of the stall, but not be able to lock the doors.
So it functions much like what we would see a gang toilet room function like. The door remains open, and then you access the stall. So there's no opportunity to lock the door. The other modification we made was we introduced a nurse suite into phase 1, which is one of 4 nurse suites that will ultimately be designed into the final completion of the building. This is the piece that I just mentioned actually occupied a classroom, and this is only on 1 floor of the academy. But the district the leaders of the project felt it was important to have a nurse's suite in close proximity to where we have a large group of students.
And just one point on that was brought up when we were talking with the school on that. We were concerned about staffing implications, but what was realized is there's a nurse at a Brooklyn right now, which will eventually be coming over to the high school, so there won't be a staffing impact of this additional nurse's office.
So moving on to phase 2, we are working on finalizing the design for phase 2, which is the music and art classroom addition that will be constructed adjacent to the auditorium. The drawings right now are at SED, so we're awaiting review and approval as anticipated at the end of December, so the end of the year. And we plan to bid between January and award in March of 2019 and start construction soon after in April of 2019. So this is just a view of the addition from looking west along Washington Avenue. You're seeing the top of the building is the art classrooms, and then the first floor are the music classrooms. The glass piece of the building to the left, the lower portion, is a stair tower. And well beyond, you see the auditorium, and well beyond that, you see your existing classroom building in its current state. This is a view of one of the band rehearsal classroom, and this is the spaces are designed, they're set. We're still working on finishes and modifying some of the acoustical treatment, but for the most part, what you're seeing is the back teaching wall, the setup of stands and chairs, and on the right-hand side, that's the front facade of the building. So you see a combination of clear glass along with acoustical treatments to help mitigate the acoustics in the classroom. The baffles on the top do the same. They're for sound absorption and reflection. So this should give you a good sense of what the space will look like. This is the chorus rehearsal room, so this is actually the space that's on the end of the addition. Same thing, the baffles at the ceiling help mitigate acoustics for performance and for choral. You're seeing glass that's kind of wrapping up high above the risers, and some glass that goes down to the floor in the corner. This is a studio art classroom, sort of one of our standard classrooms. Again, a lot of natural abundant daylight facing north, so this is really appropriate for this space. We are going with an exposed steel structure, suspended light fixtures. In this case, there's electrical reels so that they can provide some flexibility for arrangement of the studio tables. So what we're building on is what you saw was phase 2. That we're waiting to start construction in the spring, and then what you're seeing now is the combination of phase 3. So at the right-hand side of the slide is the first third of the classroom building that's included in phase 3. This is the main floor, the second floor. So you're seeing the new media center the relocation of the media center to the front of the building, the new main offices or central administration and entrance adjacent to the renovated auditorium. And then from that point, kind of up the page, the infill between the existing auditoriums, the existing gymnasiums and athletic spaces and the auditorium, so the main lobby space and entrance space. Moving up to the third floor, the main connection and spine back to the classroom addition to connect now to the balcony level and lobby space that also brings you kind of east and west to the art classroom addition and to the renovated classroom spaces at the classroom addition, which is a combination of student success centers, which are sort of enhanced computer labs, what used to be referred to as distance learning, and some of the JROTC classroom spaces and foreign language classrooms. And then actually we're moving down to the ground level where we are renovating some of the athletic spaces and again introducing that connection spine back to the classroom addition and over to the existing classroom building where most of their CTE spaces are located. So moving on to phase 4 is where you see it kind of all pulled together, where we infill to make the connections to the existing building and the newly constructed portions of the building and infill the cafeteria for a new dining center. Also on this floor, there are, we have the high special needs classrooms, some of the additional CTE spaces, in this case culinary, which sits adjacent to your kitchen and serving area, and which then feeds the dining hall. And again, some of the CTE spaces, in this case, the technology and Project Lead the Way in robotics. Overall second floor plan in its completion. The fourth floor, the phase 4 of the second and third floor are the 2 other academies that we are renovating that will occupy the existing building. So we are in schematic design for this phase now, or starting schematic design where we'll start to get into more detail and start working closely with Karen and Jody to really get into the design of the last 2 academies. Essentially, they'll be laid out quite similar in the sense that it'll have all the same classroom spaces, and we'll be building on what we've developed already. So next steps, complete bid documents for phase 2, which we have a good big team working on right now, working hard. Phase 3, continue reviewing the project development with the school, which we continue to do on an almost weekly basis, and in fact on some occasions on a daily basis, and working on starting the completion and for programming and schematic design for phase 4, the final phase.
Thank you very much for a very extensive presentation. It is amazing to see all of the work we have been doing for so many years starting to actually come to fruition. It's very exciting for all of us. Board colleagues, do you have any questions or comments for our presenters? Ms. Lang?
I was wondering, when does the furniture or the learning centers or how teachers want to set up their classrooms begin?
Do you want to speak to the mock-up?
As we've mentioned a couple times before, we have actually procured 3 classrooms of different types of furniture that were installed the last week in August. So there's 3 teachers that are trying out some different types of furniture, excuse me, that they'll kind of critique and make some decisions on what direction we want to go for the overall planning of the furniture purchase. So then the furniture will then be vetted out that way and documents prepared for procuring that in time for installation with the occupancy of the new classrooms.
Ms. Roach?
And my question is as much about current usage as it is, but also about the current construction. I had heard from a parent that children were not changing for gym, but I noticed that your presentation says that the boys' locker room and showers will be completed soon, and then the girls' ones will be completed later. Can you tell me what's going on? Because I had originally thought that those trailers were being used to change, but it sounds like that's just for the teams.
That's correct, and I just came from the Albany High School PTA meeting where Jody eloquently answered the exact same question. So my understanding was that there used to be a restriction or you would get a derogatory mark in your grading if you didn't change for gym. They've lifted that because they were challenged. They didn't have the appropriate spaces to change, so all the kids were posted up in the auditorium space for the first week of school. Since the locker rooms are back online, the boys are using the boys' locker room. The girls are using the pool locker rooms to be able to change for gym. They still don't have the requirement to change, but they now have a place that they can do so. And then the thought process was to relook at that policy when we get occupancy of the girls' locker room back.
I like the flexibility. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Anyone else have a comment or a question? Okay, 2 questions That was it. You guys have any questions you want to ask each other? That was pretty good. No, really, your presentation was so complete and thorough, and we are so optimistic and excited about watching the building come together. It's really tremendous, the work you're doing for us, and we very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. And that brings us to our final item. Mrs. Adams with a discussion of the CSD leadership resource roles and responsibilities.
Good evening. We will definitely keep this brief. Basically, what you have in front of you is, and I'll give you a little background. As we have new board members come on board, we typically will have an orientation where each cabinet member will share information, and we will have numerous pieces of paper and a binder that we would supply, and we would go through that information. And so, Ms. Alexander Mann, you have experienced the version 1.0, but now we are moving into version 2.0, which we now have an electronic leadership resource guide. And we do have tabs throughout that you can click on, and it'll take you through the different sections. But we thought that this was a good time to, as we've had different responsibilities align with different areas and a little bit of the realignment of some of our departments and supervisory roles, that it would be a good time at this juncture to at least walk you through some of the various roles and responsibilities that have changed along the way over the past year. And at the end of this is like a 3-part series, so there will be different cabinet members that will share out their divisions with you. And please notice the language is changing, that each cabinet member now supervises a division. And within that division, there are departments that report to them. And so you will start to see that alignment. And at the end of the 3-part series, we will then share out what that organizational chart looks like at that time. And so first couple of things that you're going to see from the superintendent's cabinet, you'll see all of the divisions that are listed. And while I have a new tool and I'm learning how to use it, okay, thank you. So this is your mouse, and this is how you scroll up and down. It's quite cool, though. I will tell you, Andre, I love this, and I'll have to get hip with it soon. But I do like the technology. So you'll see the different divisions that report directly to the superintendent. And you will also see within the section under the superintendent, you will see the evaluation components for the superintendent's performance standards. I did feel that it is a public, that's public information as to how the superintendent is evaluated and what those categories are. And just very briefly, the first one is about vision, culture, and instructional leadership. The second standard, operations, resource, personnel management. The third is board governance and policy. The fourth, communications and community relations. And the fifth, ethical leadership. Within each of those components, I'll just talk about them holistically because many of them do overlap. In looking at the responsibilities of the superintendent in each of those categories, that is the work that we do throughout the year, and we revisit that. One of the things that the board has been very forthright and interested and moving forward with is working with Cabinet to develop that multi-year component of how we build a system of continuous improvement, and it falls in alignment with the standards by which the superintendent is evaluated. We're going to start with two areas that are always near and dear to my heart. It is the core of what we do. It is instruction. And so Dr. Cecily Wilson-Turner will talk about the Elementary Education Division, and then Ms. Lori McKenna will talk to us about the Secondary Education Division. Thank you.
Good evening. You'll find that a lot of what Lori McKenna and I do is very similar in terms of our general roles and responsibilities. So where applicable, I will state as such, and Lori will not repeat those items. We'll try to just show you how we're different in terms of the things that we supervise as each of us speak. So as Assistant Superintendent over the Elementary Division, I have the responsibility for all of the elementary buildings, working directly with our elementary principals, which results in the coordination of their evaluations, monthly check-in meetings, their state reviews coordination, and our monthly district administrators meeting. We provide professional development specifically to the administrators during that time. I take the elementary folks, Lori takes the secondary folks. That would be a good blended name for us. Oh, okay. She takes the secondary folks, but there is a time when we all come together under the direction of the superintendent as well in that professional development. We also coordinate our other leadership development activities in the district through the Aspiring Leaders, and then contract that was that's coming up soon is the CASDA coaching and mentoring work that we do with our new administrators. Those are things that Lori and I collaborate on a regular basis. We split our responsibilities in terms of supporting the APPR process for teachers and the APPR process for administrators. And other than that, we take the calls that come out of buildings where parents have questions, concerns, work with our principals to try to resolve those issues on a regular basis. And then where we have cross-section, for example, if there's a special education issue at elementary school, even though Lori has direct oversight over the special education department, because it falls into the elementary arena, we keep each other in the loop to make sure the appropriate person is responding and resolving the issue. Specific to the elementary division, I also supervise my director of professional performance review, and that is the person who's responsible for all the evaluations that occur for our teachers, our support staff in terms of the APSTA contract, and as well as the evaluation process for all administrators in the system. And like I said, Lori and I split the attendance to those two meetings, and whenever one of us cannot be present, the other one is sure to attend so that we have some continuity on those teams. I have the pleasure of supervising Michelle Bridgewater, who is our district improvement director, and she has multiple hats that she wears. One is which the community schools work, which you saw this evening, but she works directly with our priority schools and our school improvement efforts. We have a very strong partnership in trying to make sure that we divide and conquer the work in a way that's efficient and effective and making sure that buildings really feel supported. Michelle also oversees any receivership schools. We don't have any at this moment in time, so her focus has been on the priority schools for the start of this school year. I also have the pleasure of supervising Melissa Hasties, our early childhood department person. There's two very passionate people whenever you hear them speak about what it is that they do, and so it carries through in all of my interactions with them as well. And Melissa coordinates our 3- and 4-year-old programs, both in district and our community-based organizations. And school health services just recently moved from me to the PPS department, which falls under Lori McKenna. Lori and I are keeping the immunization exemption requests because those tend to reach a higher level, and so we said we would continue to coordinate those in support of the school health services.
Well, good evening again, and I will keep mine brief because Cecily did cover a lot of what I do on a regular basis. In addition to supervising the ENL and Refugee Services Department under Tom Gilio's leadership, PPS, People Personnel Services, Dr. Carrie Canzoni Ball, who you heard from tonight. She has 2 new areas of responsibility, safety and security, and health, nurse management is also under her now. We have shifted the psychologist from PPS over to special education, so that's a new supervisory area for the special education department. I do have the pleasure of supervising Debbie Sharp, and she's the leader for the special education department. In addition to PPS Special Ed and ENL, I also have Kathy Ryan, the Director for Athletics, PE, Health, K through 12, under my leadership. And I think in addition to those departments, I also have the supervisory responsibility of the middle school and high school principals, the Albany International Center principal, and Tony Clement Center principal. Cecily and I both have lottery responsibilities under our supervision. I work closely with Albany High School for the high school lottery for the academies, and Cecily oversees the magnet lotteries and the pre-K lotteries. And I think that's a wrap.
Any board colleagues, do we have any questions or comments on this substantial presentation? Thank you very much, by the way, for documenting all of this. It's incredibly helpful for people to be able to visualize the whole structure as they need to navigate it. Board colleagues, Ms. Wilson.
I just recall going through the overview with all the members of the cabinet, which I appreciated, and I remember my comment being something like, I wish this could have been recorded for the public, so I feel like this is like an iteration of that, so I greatly appreciate it.
Ms. Roach?
So I actually could not access the guide, so I'm not sure that the guide is available to the public through Board Docs, because when I clicked on it, it said I needed permission.
It is, Ms. Rocha, you're absolutely correct. It is not currently available on the public side. The
Okay.
link, which is on Board Docs, which we should probably change somehow because it does take you to the actual document, which is behind our, it's in our Google Drive. So yes, that is a big problem, but I mean, it's a small problem that can be solved. Anyone else? Ms. Rocha, do you want to add to your comment? No, you're good?
Nope.
Okay.
I think I understand. Or actually,
Anyone
I
else?
still don't, but that's okay.
Ms. Lang.
I know that this has been a systematic change in how we've done it, and so I just want to say that this is one of the things that in the community, when we talk about, the role of the new superintendent, you've been here a year, what changes, what is going on, I'm able to say and talk about this, and now it's in front of me because I can talk about it in depth and just, what I remember. And I think that that's a positive. I think people are seeing the move of some of our departments in oversight, and they're looking forward to the positive change from where we were before. So I think this is evident in what's needed. It's a deliverable, and there's a great understanding around it. So thank you.
Ms. Smith?
No, I agree. I think this is great. I think I was going to say that the big takeaway for me, and not that I didn't know this, but now publicly you can actually see how much, the scope of work under each department, and it's huge, it's tremendous. So I just really appreciate you've documented this very well, and it's overwhelming in a little bit, so, it's okay, but it's very good. Thank you.
I was just going to say what Vicki said, so I have no comment.
Terrific. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much. We very much appreciate your work on this effort. And now I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Ms. Smith, seconded by Dr. Chachor. Everybody's hand is up. All in favor? That would be unanimous.